So the next technique I teach is escaping the bear. You guys probably know this technique is captured twigs. This is a defense against a rear bear hug, arms pinned. Now, before I even get into teaching the Kenpo technique, we're going to spend some time practicing basic bear hug defense. Okay? Basic bear hug defense, 3 phases: pin, drop, and wrap. Okay? Now what I mean by that is the first thing we're going to do, and again we talked about this earlier, the first thing we do in Kenpo, when somebody puts their hands on us, we grab the grab. So when this bear hug comes around and they grab us, we want to grab that, and we'll even practice doing it with both hands. We'll practice doing it with one hand, which is what we're going to do in this technique. But however it is, we got to establish some level of control there. Now that's for 2 reasons. One, we want to reassert that control both physically and psychologically over our opponent. 2, we don't want him to be able to transfer that to a different kind of hold, right? So he's got his hands here. If I drop and that arm comes up to here, I've actually put myself in a worse situation. So I want to be sure that I have control of that, okay? Now that's step 1, pin, right? Grab the grab. Step 2 is drop. It's establish a base, okay? If I'm up like this, it's real easy for my opponent to pick me up, throw me around, slam me into the wall, drop me on the floor. And these are all the reasons he's bear hugging. Right? The simplest reason is he's holding me so that his buddy can come over here and hit me. But in reality, especially in a one-on-one situation, he's got me in that hold because he's going to reposition me. And the deeper I can get my base and the more sturdy I can get my base, the easier it's going to be for me to control my position, the more difficult it's going to be for my opponent to manipulate my position. So I'm pinning, I'm dropping, and the third one is wrap. This is a technique called grapevining. I'm going to use my leg and I'm going to wrap around the inside or the outside of my opponent's leg, and I'm going to try to hook with my foot onto his leg. Now I don't want to do this with both legs simultaneously. I always want to keep one leg out to base so that if I'm hooking onto my opponent and he drops me, I'm landing on my foot and not on my face. So the reason we do this, and this is something that we'll practice, we drill all these steps with our students, is so that if he does pick me up, I attach myself to his base quickly so he can't drop me, throw me, whatever he's going to try to do. So I pin, I drop, and if necessary, I wrap my leg around my opponent's leg, okay, and attach myself to his base. We're going to drill those 3 basic bear hug defenses a ton before we start worrying about our Kenpo technique, right? Now, once we've got a pretty good idea of bear hugs, and we start this with what I call a teddy bear hug. Teddy bear hug is how you see this attack done a lot. Guy comes up, he's got his butt out, he puts his arms around you and kind of rests his head on your back, okay? That's not an attack. Now, I'll do that with beginners because they're starting to get the feel of, okay, somebody's encircling you, somebody's trapping your arms. Again, remember, we're talking about civilians. We're very early on in their training. They don't have a lot of experience with this stuff. We're going to start with this nice, light, sort of I gotcha kind of attack. But we're going to progress up to what I would call a grizzly bear hug pretty quickly. Okay? Once they get the idea of that, then we're going to start grabbing them, we're going to get in tight, we're going to start moving them around, and that's all the steps of drilling basics of bear hug defense. Pin, base, wrap. Right? So once they have an understanding of that, and they're pretty comfortable with, okay, I'm grabbing you, and oh, I'm protecting myself, and we can drill that spontaneously and get them to a level where they're pretty comfortable with that pretty quickly, then we're going to start working into the Kenpo technique. So in this technique, they grab me, I control their arms, I base out, and that gives me 2 things. 1, I've established a base. 2, I've opened up a line for striking to my opponent's center line. So I base out, strike the groin. Now I'm going to use my shoulder to push my opponent off of me. Now the question comes up, what if he's grabbed us and when we hit him in the groin he doesn't let go? Hit him again, right? The techniques a lot of times are boom, boom, boom. But if one of those strikes doesn't work, you don't try to go to the next thing. You need the manipulation or the effect from the previous step to make the next step work. So if I step out and I go for this guy's groin and he turns his hips, he knows what he's doing, he's trying to protect with his bear hug, then I'm going to have to adapt, right? I'm going to have to scramble. I'm going to have to continue to find ways to strike, and we build on that with some of our later techniques by adding in the elbow strikes and a lot of other things. But at this level, we hit, we use that shoulder to create space, okay? And what I'm really doing here is I'm shrugging that opponent off of me. If he's loosened that grip, it's going to be easy for me to knock him off of me. It's really just a shiver move to get him off of me. If he's still tight, then I'm squirming, I'm moving around in there. What we're practicing here is getting alive inside that hold, okay? So he grabs us, hit him, turn our body into him, and create space, because remember, you have to have space to strike, right? So we turn our body into him, we create space, and while we're doing that, we're finding our opponent with this foot, okay? And this is another drill we'll do. I don't need to look at my opponent to find out where he's at. I can feel the floor and find out where he's at, and I know where his body is, and that gives me a pretty good idea of where his legs and his feet are, right? Just like if I can find his arms, I can find his head, right? Through contouring and tracking. Same thing here. So I shake him off of me, I find his foot, I'm going to stomp on his foot, and that's going to launch this elbow up into his chin. And the idea behind that is we talk about bringing the weapon to the target and the target to the weapon. Here we're going to do both. So as I stomp on his foot, the reaction I want to get is this. I want him to drop from the pain of that, because the human is always going to go to the point of predominant pain. Well, here's where I've hurt him, and I already hit him in the groin. So hopefully I'm breaking his structure, and as he drops down, the elbow comes up, wham, and cleans him out, right? Maybe I break his jaw. Maybe if his mouth is open and his tongue is out, he could even bite down, sever his own tongue. There's a lot of possibilities there. Now from there, of course, we can go right back into some of our previous techniques that we've practiced. There's a lot of different things. Some schools, once they get to here, they like to step off and face the opponent with some of these techniques. I'm fine with that. Some schools start teaching cover-outs right off the bat. And so once they get to here, they cover out. However you do it, the important thing is that you're drilling these basic maneuvers, right? That you're practicing basic bear hug defense. If this is all you're teaching your students of bear hugs, that's not going to serve them very well when somebody grabs them, right? Maybe they get that off, but if they don't, or their opponent has a good idea what they're planning to do with that grab, and they don't know these basics of how to move around within a bear hug, they're going to be in trouble. They're really going to struggle there. Okay? If you understand already how to move around, how to fight, how to wrestle in that bear hug, then all of this suddenly comes into context and makes a lot more sense. So again, basic technique, beginner technique. This is the first time, really. I mean, we've done a little bit with holds with some of our tie clinch and stuff, and we're going to cover that more in depth in another technique. But this is sort of one of the first times where I've said, okay, now this guy's trying to grab your whole body, right? He's put his hand on you. He's taken a couple of swings at you. Now, he's pushed you. Now he's just trying to grab your entire body and move you. And you're going to learn how to resist that and how to strike and move your way out of it. And you're learning these basic strikes. We're talking about basic self-defense here, right? Stomps, elbows, hammer fist to the groin. This is all very simple, basic stuff. That's why this is the first bear hug technique we teach. And again, if you look at the way I ordered the instruction, grabs, then pushes, then punches, then kicks, then holds. The next technique we're going to work on is a choke attempt. So each of these maneuvers is building through the categories of attack. And that's how I try to structure a large portion of my curriculum. So again, escaping the bear. We've practiced basic bear hug defense. We've drilled that. Our students have an understanding how that works. We're going to grab, step out, strike the groin, turn into our opponent. We're checking here. This is just getting the hands up. I can strike from this. If I need to keep hitting him, I can. Whatever I need to do. If he's still trying to get me, I can check his hands out. I can go into my arm hold and control, do some different things there. From here, stomp, elbow, right? And then if you need to, push him off, escape the hold, however you need to do that. If you guys have any questions, let me know. That's escaping the bear.